And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lane, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And we've gotten some rain at our house, the monsoon season. I can tell the plants, they're starting to form new leaf buds, which is very exciting. This is why I was recommending the last 2, 3 weeks fertilize, fertilize, fertilize. So important to fertilize. Put a plant food out there, not a water soluble, but a granular food. And let me just explain the difference between the two because they make a real difference as it interacts with our summer rain season that's here. So the reason you want to put a granular organic food out there around the root ball, around the drip line. So from the base of that tree out to the outer branches, that's called the drip line, or the roots will mirror the outer branches. And the feeder roots, the real small, young, paper white, kind of hair thin type of roots, those are the ones that take in food and they take in water. The bigger roots towards the core or the trunk of that plant, at the base of that plant, these are big anchoring roots. They're substantial. They look like branches. They look like they're covered in bark. You can't see any of the wood underneath that. Those roots are simply there to keep the plant upright during a storm. Keep it, if it gets struck by lightning, it can withstand that maybe and hold it upright. Keep it in a snowstorm, a wind shear. It's going to hold that thing upright. Those plants, those roots are not able to take up nutrients, or very little water, very little food through those roots. The feeder roots, the ones that take up water and nutrients, are out towards the outer edge of the drip line, or where those outer branches are of your fruit tree, of your lilac, of your roses. That's where the feeder roots, that's where you want to move your irrigation out. That's where you want to sprinkle that granular fertilizer around. And so a big tree might take a half a bag of fertilizer because it's got a huge drip line. If you're wasting that right at the trunk, right at the base, right where the emitters are, right where the water wells are, yet this plant has grown that. You got a beautiful purple leaf plum that's just, it's now magnificent. You definitely need to fertilize out there, but you might need to readjust your water basin. You might need to adjust your irrigation to water and food out there where the roots truly are. And so that's a secret. Water solubles, what's the difference? So water soluble is like a Miracle-Gro. So you'll open up the can. It's probably a powder of some sort. It usually has a scoop. So ours is called Flower Power, and it's got a little scoop in there. And the scoop is 1 scoop per gallon of water. And you're actually adding that to a water can, and you're diluting that down into water. So you don't really sprinkle that on top of the soil because it breaks down so quickly with water that it can sometimes do more damage. It can burn foliage. It's too much. You need to dilute it first with water and then add with diluted water series, a water soluble fertilizer around your plants. Never ever add Miracle-Gro around the base of your plants and just sprinkle it there and then water it in with a hose. It's not measurable that way. So you can do damage that way. And you may not do any good that way. It could actually, you may be in the wrong spot. Those are meant to be diluted first with water, then added. Here's the negative. The positive is they're accessible by that plant like right now, immediately, today. Some of that fertilizer will be picked up. The negative is if water hits it again, let's say a rainstorm or your irrigation, it quickly flushes out. It also leaves very quickly. So within 2 weeks, a water-soluble food is completely gone. None left, none available at least to that plant. Whereas a granular fertilizer sprinkled around the edges of that drip line, every time it rains, every time the irrigation comes on, you're going to release a little food. So it dissolves slowly over time. And so for ours, we created an organic fertilizer. It's called all-purpose plant food, 744 all-purpose. It's bird guano and cottonseed meal and some iron and sulfur and some things. It's a recipe that we've created, but it's organic. Then as water hits it over the next 3 months, it's a 3-month formula, it will release a little food every time it gets moist over 3 months. That's way better for your bigger plants. This is critical for fruit trees, shade trees, evergreens. You got a new spruce tree. They're going to much prefer any time of the year a granular food over a water-soluble food. The water-solubles, those are mainly created for hanging baskets, things you're watering often. So raised beds, containers, pots, big things that have a smaller root ball that you're watering all the time. That's where you're using water-soluble food. Sometimes we'll add it to let's say roses or my lilacs. They just didn't bloom the way I wanted. Sometimes we'll put the all-purpose food as the long-purpose, longer feeding fertilizer, and we might supplement that. Let's say a rose bush. The flowers should be larger. They should be more. We would fertilize that with all-purpose plant food, and then we might supplement or add to that some water soluble. You can use them in conjunction with each other, kind of supercharge or front load the phosphorus. So our flower power, it's 48% liquid available phosphorus. That's that middle number. Remember, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. It's mainly that middle number. That's the one that forms fruits and flowers. If you want more of those, give it flower power every couple of weeks, and you will have larger roses, bigger tomatoes, more zucchinis, larger lilacs. But we don't use, if in doubt, use the granular all-purpose food, because it's going to feed over a very long period of time. If it's small, probably, like say flowers, vegetables, it's probably going to be flower power, because you're watering those things, probably every day right now, or every other day at most. If you're in a wet area and you've seen a lot of afternoon rains, maybe you can back it off to every other day. For me, we've only seen a little bit of rain. I don't know what's going on. All of our neighbors have had moisture. The airport, Prescott Valley, you all have been nailed. Dewey just got a big storm. We haven't seen anything yet. So I'm still watering every day because I don't want my plants to scorch. I want them to keep growing. This, with the humidity and the moisture that we have in the air, if nothing else. And then I know rain is coming. I just don't know how much or when for any of us that are tuned in. But for me, I'm just going to keep things hydrated and fertilized. And when I do get rained, that food is going to activate. It's going to go through the soil. The plant's going to quickly pick that up. And it's a whole new growing season. So I get a whole nother set of foliage on my maples, whether it's a shade maple, like a blaze maple or a Japanese maple, either one. My lilacs, they not like the heat, but I know they're going to like the humidity, some moisture, and some food. If I want some lilacs next spring, you need to fertilize now, because it's picking up food now to form next spring's flower bud. So it's critical. It's just important. This is one of the most important fertilizings or plant feedings of the year, especially trees, shrubs, vines. So my akebia, there's a very fast growing evergreen vine. I love it. It's one of my favorite vines. I think it's a better vine than, let's say, ivy, which is the number one seller in the country, at least. So, or honeysuckle. Honeysuckle's got that real bright flower to it. It's so sweet. I like akebia. It's very fast growing. Well, that heat, it just turned. It went real hot really fast, and I didn't water enough. I should have. I didn't adjust the irrigation fast enough, and it scorched. The top of the leaves are brown. The core of the plant's alive. It's fine, but I'll just fertilize that. I've adjusted my irrigation. I know I'm going to get rain, and it will, within a month, it's going to look like a brand new plant, because I coached it. I kind of allowed it. I nurtured it to want to grow, and I know I've got plenty of season left. That's it for this segment. We got Lisa Watersling coming in with your garden questions right after this. Don't go anywhere.